Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Data Standard Audio Experience. I'm your host, Catherine Tao, and today we have Anna Swigart, a Senior Manager of Data Engineering for Data Governance from Zillow. And today we're going to be speaking more about data governance in a very data-driven industry. So welcome to the show, Anna. I'm excited to speak with you and learn more about your experiences and what led you to Zillow today.
Thanks, Catherine. Happy to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us more about your background.
Sure. So my current role is Senior Manager of Data Engineering, leading our governance team at Zillow. If you're not familiar with Zillow, it's a leading real estate and rental marketplace dedicated to empowering consumers with data and inspiration and helping them find what their new place to call home. So like many others working in the data space, my career has had a bit of a winding path to get to where I am today. I started out doing actually cognitive neuroscience research, studying how our brains help us process information. And now in my role at Zillow, my team builds platforms and frameworks to help people better make sense of their data at scale through metadata systems and automation.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And what does the data governance program at Zillow include?
So at Zillow, we approach data governance with two primary components. So first, we have platforms that serve data producers and consumers in their data management needs. And then we have processes that align on data standards and procedures, which we have hands-on support for as well. So our data platforms drive effective data management across four major pillars that are central to Zillow's data strategy. So these are data discovery, quality, privacy, and security. And I'll talk a little bit about each of these. So for data discovery, really the data catalog is at the center of our platform. So we built an in-house catalog of the data sets and processes that exist across our environments to track our data inventory and help data consumers find the most relevant and high quality data for their purpose. So this includes resources like Hive, Snowflake, and other kinds of SQL tables, Kafka topics, Airflow jobs, Tableau reports, with a list of entities like constantly growing based on the types of things we adopt. And we have a search index and a user interface on top of this metadata for people to be able to find relevant data and understand the context around it. So things like data health, visibility, lineage with other data sets and services, recent queries run against the data, tags, field description, things like that. So our data quality platforms provide data health monitoring and prevent bad data propagation by identifying issues early on in data pipelines. So our platform supports both config-driven deterministic quality checks based on predefined expectations, as well as machine learning-driven monitoring for anomalies and time series metrics. So we integrate these components into other data processing and model development frameworks at Zillow. Next, there's privacy. So we own the central set of services that takes consumer data privacy requests from our public portal and orchestrates the operations with other teams to give our customers the ability to access the information that we've collected about them and if they want to delete this information. So currently this is for CCPA law, the California Consumer Privacy Act, and it'll be expanding to others as other states adopt these regulations. So next, for data security, our team's coordinating development of a central data security approach that uses attribute-based access control to make access policies simple to apply through platforms and to secure new data sets by default in a scalable way. So those are kind of the four main pillars of our platforms. And in practice, interactions with these platforms need to be incorporated into the data production lifecycle in order to be sustainable. So many integrations can happen through metadata automation, but the process aspect of data governance is also a critical piece. So you need clear engagement models between the data producers, who are the engineers or scientists who are publishing data sets, and the data consumers, and also a standardized path for the most important data sets to be implemented with each of the governance pillars fully in place. So at Zillow, in addition to our platform investments, we're building out our data stewardship program to provide this guidance and support for data governance across the organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like data governance has really been able to help Zillow overall really improve on the end goal a lot. And how is data governance helping to really scale your industry overall in terms of anything like revenue or customer retention? How does that work?
So over the past couple of decades, the software industry has really gone through a giant increase in how much data is able to be captured at relatively little cost for per volume. So what this has led to is a state where companies have a lot of data sitting around that they may not have the capacity to keep track of and to make full use of. So this increases cost and risk over time while having a detrimental impact on data discovery and decision making, because you have all of this data that may be stale or irrelevant, but it's hard to know. And furthermore, storage and retrieval of data becomes a very non-trivial cost, with more processes writing massive volumes of data and data consumers retrieving really large raw data sets with lots of historical data. So data governance tools and practices help companies make efficient, safe, and effective use of the data that they have in the face of this increased volume and complexity. So these tools help companies ensure an understanding of not only what information is being collected, but also whether and how it's being used and shared. They also ensure that what we're doing with information aligns with our customers' expectations, which is important for maintaining trust and managing a complex web of compliance requirements. And so as an additional benefit, implementing data governance practices also allows a quickly growing organization to manage costs by removing data sets and compute processes that are no longer serving the business. A really important aspect is automating metadata collection to minimize gaps in visibility. This includes things like syncing metadata about physical data stores with your catalog system, capturing data lineage through queries and processes, and enabling the propagation of metadata through lineage, maybe automating attribution of asset to the team who created it in the first place. So this automation piece is really going to help you scale the whole operation. And then there will always be a manual component that's required at some level in your data governance setup. Not all data is equally important or useful. So making sure that your most business critical data sets have full coverage on the data governance pillars, including complete documentation and robust data quality monitoring, is really important. A framework around identifying which data sets fall into the higher priority tiers and focusing most of your efforts there will provide more value for the same effort. And these top tier data sets can be identified both through business priorities, so which data impacts revenue or customer experience the most, and if something goes wrong with that data, what would the impact be on your business, and through inspecting data lineage to see how many internal consumers are depending on a particular data set. And then finally, self-service platforms to have seamless developer experiences and visibility about data consumers in your organization as it grows is really important. So with, say, 50 data users internally at a company, a few people might be able to keep enough data and business context in their heads about why something was collected or who depends on it. But as you get to many hundreds or thousands of data consumers within a company, it becomes impossible and risky to store this information or this tribal knowledge with people. So this is where self-service platforms play a role, where employees can contribute and query a rich corpus of data knowledge without having to talk to a data scientist or a domain expert for every request.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And what processes help the stakeholders understand their data governance action items much better?
Sure. So process is a really important component to data governance to understand the progress and action items that are required. Often when an organization doesn't have a process in place to guide data producers in particular, the consumers, the data scientists, analysts, product managers, they're the ones who find issues and kind of have to backtrack and deal with how to handle that process. So there's a few ways that we can be proactive about this. So first, establishing data producer standards is helpful. So this helps engineers and scientists have a clear checklist of expectations around what they need to configure and make decisions about when embarking on a new project or when publishing a data set that needs to be shared or used by many stakeholders. So this may include guidance on which data platforms and patterns are preferred to map to your organization's data architecture approach, metadata tagging requirements for discovery and privacy compliance, data contract configuration, to have a shared understanding of evaluations for things like data availability, schema, and business-specific validations, documentation, and data naming standards for improving the interoperability of data across silos. These are some of those components that are good to have basically in a standardized guide. So this sets expectations at the outset of a project or when a data set needs to be promoted to be used for a new business critical purpose. So next, providing data producers visibility, the current status across the pillars is helpful. So for this, you need to develop standardized metrics that can be measured objectively and that are actionable for a team. So this can be accomplished by combining the expectations that you had in your data producer standards with metrics that can be computed over your data catalog and other metadata systems, and publishing these metrics in reports that each team can track. So reporting on data governance is great because it not only highlights action items for things that may be broken or need attention, but it also creates self-documenting success metrics for teams that they can use in things like quarterly goals to communicate the quality of the data products that they're managing. You should expect that sometimes things will go wrong with your data. If there's an issue you anticipated and had an appropriate check in place on for your data infrastructure monitoring or in a data contract, then detecting this situation quickly is a successful outcome of the system, but you still need the right alerting setup and probably an on-call process to mitigate any serious issues quickly before consumers expect to use their data. So for unexpected problems that downstream stakeholders identify, it's also helpful to have a clear incident management process for reporting issues, including a root cause analysis after the issue is resolved, and feedback loop for creating system improvements and new automated checks.
Yeah, all this stuff sounds great. And there's a lot of different moving parts of data governance from what you have mentioned throughout today's conversation. And is there any aspect of it or any of it that you would change or add to data governance in order to make it even a better process for different organizations out there?
Yeah, so there's still a lot of interesting unsolved problems in the data governance space, and they mostly have to do with establishing industry standards for how we deal with this massive scale. So both on the platform and metadata side and the process side, empowering the responsible, efficient, and effective use of data. So for instance, the evolution of a growing data-driven business requires new ways of approaching data ownership and fostering dynamic partnerships between data producers and consumers. This is a major shift in mindset for many teams and organizations that will continue to iterate on as an industry. The development of industry standards for metadata collection formats and processes will also make it easier for companies to choose different components to implement that fit together for their needs. This is one of the main reasons that we chose to build all of our platforms in-house. So basically many off-the-shelf independent products or open source platforms contained many components that we didn't want or wouldn't be interoperable with our other systems. And so we do see a pattern starting of more modular components being published that can be shared. So some of these standards are in the works, such as there's an open lineage standard that's being worked on, and also the evolution of standard practices for attribute-based access control, where you don't provision every data set independently for access, but you use the metadata about the asset and about the data consumer to understand what their access should be.
Yeah, and all of this sounds awesome. And thank you so much, Anna, for sharing everything that you wanted to speak about data governance. I think it's an aspect that a lot of companies should be adopting in order to improve their company overall and in order to get to their end business goal, definitely. And where can everybody find you online to connect with you?
Sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Anna Swigart, ANNASWIGART. You can also find more information about Zillow and some of the work that we've been doing at zillow.com/tech for our blog. And we're also hiring several positions for the team across engineering and data stewardship, and also other roles across the organization. So zillow.com/careers is another great place to check out opportunities to join Zillow if you're interested.
Yeah, awesome. And to our audience, for more information on the data standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io, as well as on our LinkedIn and YouTube channel. So thank you so much, Anna, for joining us. Such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thanks so much.